Hello and welcome to another Free History Online video. And today we're looking at Germany, 1890 to 1945. And we're going to look at the Weimar years, famous for Gustav Stresemann and the wonders of cinema and architecture. But we're going to make sure you've got your grade 9 knowledge, and we're going to look at some important interpretation skills. So during this little video, we're going to be revising your knowledge. There'll be a quick quiz on the key aspects of the Weimar years. And then we're going to look at the interpretation skills, and particularly the how convincing questions. So looking at some viewpoints about the past and using your knowledge just to decide how convincing are they. So here we are in our quiz area, and just 5 fact-based questions just to test your knowledge. Now, if you're not quite sure you know any of this, do revise first of all. You can look back at our videos, and I'll add a link to the screen now. Somewhere I'll add the link, and you can click on it and revise the key content. It's just a 2 or 3 minute little musical video. You can read through, watch as many times you like until you've got that knowledge in your head, and then you can play along. Okay, have a go at this quiz. You can just write the answers or have a think about them. Okay, but pause the screen now and have a go. Okay, let's go through some answers then. So if you haven't paused and you need to, then do it now before I flick on. Okay, and here we go. Let's go through some answers. Okay, so do you have excellent knowledge? Did you know the type of art that was famous in this time was avant-garde? And this was a much more sort of a realistic type of art, looking at life in a bit more detail. And what about the type of design that came along in this time, the Bauhaus design movement? This was sort of blocky, square style, very modern type of design. Traditionalists in Germany, like Hitler and the Nazis, really detested this. They wanted a classical design. What about a play by Brecht? It was a big hit. Well, the Threepenny Opera was a massive hit in the theatres of Germany during this time. And obviously, the theatres and the movies were seen as extremely Jewish and disliked by Hitler. And they had to really work hard to remove some of the Jewish nature of things in the 1930s. So number 4, what about a famous Hollywood actress? Well, Marlene Dietrich, hopefully you've heard of, shows the real great quality of theatre actors in the Weimar years. And if Germany in the 1930s was going to continue and Hitler was going to have great propaganda films, he was going to have to make great films with great stars if that was going to be a success. And finally, a wonderful sci-fi film was Metropolis. You've probably seen it, with this sort of android with the sort of electrolysis around its head. One of these sort of original sci-fi films. I hope the quiz went well and you've got some really good knowledge. So now we're going to use that knowledge to test how convincing interpretations are. So for AQA, this question is, in this exam, is 2 different interpretations. We've got to decide for 8 marks, which is the most convincing. However, this skill is in many exam papers, and it's about using your knowledge to assess just how correct this historian is. So here we are. Here is the interpretation question. For AQA, it's question 3. It's worth 8 marks. So you can read the question yourself, but it does say quite clearly here which interpretation gives the most convincing opinion about the golden age of art and culture in the years 1924 to 1928. Okay, and it says explain your answer based on your contextual knowledge and what it says in interpretation A and B. So if you like, have a little pause of the screen, have a read through, have a think about what is the success criteria for this question. How would you answer this question? Once you've had a little think about it, move on and we'll have a look at this success criteria here on this screen. So there's lots of command words and particular things in here that give clues as to the actual mark scheme. It's actually quite clear if you read it carefully. So firstly, it says to think about how convincing it is, which is more convincing. So that phrase more convincing suggests we need to write about both of them, both the interpretations in A and B. So A and B need their own paragraph. And we've talked about in our other videos about peel writing. So we'll talk about that in more detail as we go through the success criteria. So each of them, we need to make a decision about how convincing they are. We then need to think about the message from the extract and say whether it's convincing or not with our own knowledge. It very clearly says, explain your answer based on your contextual knowledge. So you've got to prove your argument with lots and lots of knowledge of the Golden Age era. It also says about you've got to talk about what it says in interpretation A and B. So we've got to make sure we've got a clear message from the content of the extract and explain it. It doesn't want us to use provenance. Okay, we're just using our knowledge. Okay, and finally, we're going to evaluate the extract. We're going to think about, is it very or is it partly convincing? And then we're going to make a judgment. Okay, let's give this question a go then. And what you can do, folks, is you can pause and give this a go, if you like. And then I'm going to talk through the actual paragraph about what it looks like afterwards. So if you'd like to have a go at writing the answer, then self-assessing it afterwards, then you can pause and do that now. Otherwise, I'm going to go through it and explain it, and then you can have a go at the other interpretation yourself independently. Okay, so we need to make a decision then about how convincing this is. We need a quite or a very argument, and why, to open up our paragraph, make our opening point. So here's my idea. So interpretation A is quite convincing about the art and culture of the Golden Age, as it tells us about the popularity of theatre and entertainment at the time. All right, so but it doesn't give us any weaknesses really, or a fair assessment. It's just only got the positives. So I think that's only quite convincing. So I'm going to summarize the message of the extract next as an example. I'm going to say, for example, it says, and I'm going to summarize the extract to support my point. So, for example, it says the theatres were full and people were excited by European artists and performers. I now need to convince the reader of this. So explain with my knowledge. Okay, that important bit of the question. Explain with your contextual knowledge. So I need a couple of facts to back this up. So I'm going to be saying, this is convincing because. Okay, so this is convincing because plays like the Three Penny Operas were massive sellout performances, and films like Metropolis showed that Germany could make high quality films and entertainment. Okay, so that hopefully is relatively simple. That's a good mark if you can do that for both interpretations and come up with a conclusion. But I think it's only quite convincing. So I've got a little weakness I want to think about. And then maybe the other extract I can either say stronger or just similar in my interpretation. So with my weakness, I'm going to be saying, however, I'm backing up with some knowledge. However, this is not totally convincing because young people, middle-class liberals, were the keenest supporters of this new sort of avant-garde art and this new entertainment, whereas the older generation, the nationalist conservative generation, didn't support this at all, and they liked sort of old-style German traditional art. And obviously, the Nazis forced many of the new artists to flee when they came to power. So we've got that very simple answer there. Now, you can have a chance at doing this yourself. So have a go. Here is interpretation B. You can pause the screen and give this a go and practice your answer. Just making sure you're very clear on giving lots and lots of knowledge. So this is obviously from a later viewpoint, so it's a bit more of a sort of Nazi view, but you don't need to explain that. Just need to think about your knowledge and what you think is convincing and not convincing about it. And then you can practice a conclusion, if you like, trying to conclude which one you think is the more convincing. So I hope you found today's lesson useful and you've been able to practice your grade 9 skills on how convincing interpretation is. I've also reminded you of some of that key knowledge about Weimar Germany. So look out for more videos. We're looking at the next stage in German history of the rise of Hitler to power. Bye-bye for now.